Hello, I'm Sid Hill and this is the Jack Russell Truffle. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. I'm just starting out on a project to create an edible ecosystem and permaculture plant nursery here in Devon, and I'm going to be sharing the whole journey with you, the ups, the downs and everything in between. Little update from the plot. I've just brought in all of my plant collection. There's a huge diversity of plants here that I've been collecting over the years. They've been living in these pots, they've been moved from house to house, and it's very exciting to be finally putting them in the ground, hopefully where they'll stay for the rest of their lives. There's lots of different edible shrubs, trees, edible perennials, like the perennial kale, amelanchier, eleagnus, Nanashi pear, sorbus, loads of small edible trees and shrubs. And then I've also got a delivery of my buffer strip or shelter belt, which is Italian alder, willow and Pinus sylvestris. This is a part of my collection, but I've also got more trees at the other side of the farm. What I did last year is, because I knew I was going to be taking on this plot, but it hadn't been set out yet, so I bought in a whole load of bare root trees and shrubs, planted them in a temporary position, let them grow for a year. Now I'm going to transplant them into this plot, the long-term plot. And that just gave me an extra year ahead of growth so that they could grow on, and then I can plant them in their permanent positions. The plot was ploughed and then it was springtime raked, and unfortunately it was a bit tricky to get hold of a power harrow, so the thick grass clods have been buried underneath. But then because of the springtime rake, a lot of those clods have been brought up to the surface, as you can see behind me. This isn't ideal, but you work with what you've got. And going forward, as my thinking's progressed, in zone 2, which is the edible meadow area, and zone 3, the food forest, I want to put down really dense seed mixes of annual wildflowers, green manures and vigorous vegetables, and this will be kind of like the first year smother crop, something to grow quickly and help smother the grasses and the perennial weeds as they emerge, the things that I don't really want too much in here of, which is like the dock, the really vigorous thistles and the vigorous grasses. I have for the last 17 odd years been creating permaculture landscapes and experimenting with ideas for clients, and a big part of that work has been creating plantings from seed. I've been really inspired by people like Fukuoka, Sepp Holzer and Geoff Lawton, where they're broadcasting diverse seed mixes, including wildflowers, vegetables, green manures that improve the soil. But I'm also inspired by people like James Hitchmo, Nigel Dunnett, Pictorial Meadows. These are people or practices where they're creating large-scale ecological and beautiful plantings from seed, and really taking inspiration from the current field of ecological planting design. So I take some inspiration from that, and so in year 1 I've got 3 zones. Zone 1, which is around the nursery, and that's going to be syntropic mother beds for propagating material for the nursery so that I can create edible landscapes in my design practice. Then in zone 2, further out from the main use area, there'll be the edible meadows, experimenting with edible prairies, edible wildflower meadows from around the world, combining edible perennials found in meadow plant communities. And my ideas with this is to have an abundant and lush meadow and prairie inspired plant communities where you can walk through them and there's beautiful diverse flowers, but you can also harvest really diverse and nutritional perennial crops. Then in zone 3 at the bottom of the plot we will have an edible forest garden, but this will be a very wild edible forest garden that I want to experiment creating it from seed. Obviously I will plant some potted plants, but I like the idea of broadcasting tree and shrub seeds into the ground, see what happens, experiment. And I'm in a very fortunate position at the moment with all of this seed that I can experiment with. But in year 1, because essentially we have ploughed this over and just buried all of the thick thatched grass sward, so the chances of this just growing back are quite high, and I don't want this to grow back and smother all of the perennial seeds I put down. So in year 1 my plan is to sow a quick growing annual crop of wildflowers, green manures and fast growing vigorous vegetables. Things like buckwheat, kales, radishes, particularly daikon radish, helping break up the soil, and then a really diverse range of annual wildflowers as well, so that they grow up really quickly. They act as a smother crop to help smother some of the perennials and the grasses as they try to re-establish. And then come autumn, I'll put in my perennial seed mixes, which will be my shrubs, trees, long-term perennial vegetables that I'll sow into the edible forest garden. And the edible meadow will be a series of different mixes inspired by different meadow plant communities. I'm particularly interested in tall grass prairies, and this idea of having really tall, lush grasses, building biomass, fixing carbon into the soil, and amongst those having edible perennials so that you can walk amongst these large grasses and harvest crops. But in year 1, I need to get all of these plants in the ground, and these are going to go in the Syntropic mother beds. This is the first time I've experimented with Syntropic growing, but I believe I understand the idea of it, and this idea of successional cultivation where all plants have a role. Annual plants have a role, biennials, perennials, climbers, pioneer, fast growing biomass trees, climax trees. And when we see a woodland establishing, all of these plants grow amongst each other, and each plant's role is to build the conditions necessary for the next plants. Us, as the gardener or the ecosystem engineer, we come in and we create disturbances in that vegetation. We prune, we chop and drop, we help the system build biomass so that we can build fertile, nutrient rich and water retentive soil that builds lush, healthy crops for us to eat. The reason I'm doing Syntropic inspired systems in the nursery is because I want all of these diverse plants I've got now to grow rapidly so that I can prune them propagate them, harvest from them, and this is going to be the zone 1 where I'm going to be at with the idea of really tending to it, really putting my time into that system. And then as we work out into the other zones, they will be less tended, more wild. That's where I'm at now, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to be on the land, tending this new plot. If you're someone who wants to come and get involved, come and volunteer your labour and your energy in exchange for sharing knowledge and being a part of a project like this as it evolves, I would love to hear from you. It's just based outside of Totnes, and yeah, it's an exciting project that I would love to share with others. So get in touch. Bye for now.